Hey folks, Tony Gatliff here with our final terrestrial episode of Military Resource Radio. You've got to follow us digitally into the digital world. You've got to go to militaryresourceradio.com and take a look at our online outlets and subscribe to our show via podcast form on one of those online outlets. Whatever's most comfortable for you, whatever gets Military Resource Radio into your device every single week without you even having to think about it, that's the one you want to go with. That is the outlet that you want to go with, folks. My name is Tony Gatliff. I'm here with BBMC Mortgage and Military Resource Radio on the BBMC Mortgage Radio Network. And if you recall last week, we had a great guest. His name is Michael Hoar, Vice President of Corporate Alliances with the USO. And Michael has a great history. He comes from the corporate world. He comes from the Special Olympics over to the USO, two organizations that are doing amazing philanthropy out there. And frankly and honestly, this guy was one of the more interesting guests that I've ever had. He's one of the most intelligent guests I've ever had. He's smart as a whip. You can just tell talking to him. But anyway, without further ado, let's get to more of our interview with Michael Hoar of the USO.
We're now operating on every continent, 7 continents. We're in 14 countries. We've got 200 locations that take all different kinds of forms around the globe. And we are the only organization serving active duty service members that is congressionally chartered. We're not the government, but we're chartered by Congress to do what we do. We have a memorandum of understanding with the Department of Defense that allows us to have the footprint that we have. So these 200 locations that I mentioned, they're all over the globe, many of them stateside, but we're in the Pacific, Europe, Southwest Asia. And often, depending on the type of location that we're talking about, we'll actually be on military installations. And in some places, specific, especially those that are close to the tip of the spear, I mean, if you're an active duty service member that is looking for just a moment of respite or a connection back home or a call to your wife who's about to give birth in the hospital, the USO is the only game in town. We are the only place, really, that you can go for that connection that is so vital, that's so important back to your family or home country.
Right. Yeah. And I gotta say, I mean, from perspective of, if you talk to, folks that have been in the military previously, right? There's not one of them that ever has a bad thing to say about the USO. Never. I mean, literally, you just do not talk to folks that have a bad thing to say about the USO because, frankly, and quite honestly, I mean, they're very grateful to have it in those times where they miss home, yeah. and that's a natural feeling, right? You miss home, it's sort of like, and I'm sure it's on a grander scale, right? But I'm sure you've traveled overseas, right? From time to time, yeah, maybe, taking trains through Europe or whatever the case is. And sometimes, you get going and it's about a week or 2 weeks or whatever, and, you've been eating, German food, you've been eating bratwurst and sauerkraut or, whatever the case may be, and you see a McDonald's. Right? And in those moments, you're never so glad to see a McDonald's in your entire life. And by the way, I hate McDonald's. I can't stand eating it. I mean, I used to love it when I was a kid. But if you're in Europe for 3 weeks and you're eating French wine and cheese and baguettes and, German food and whatever, sometimes you just want a little taste of home, And I think on a much larger scale, obviously, than the example that I just gave, right? I think that the USO represents that to a lot of folks out there, to a lot of active duty service members or folks who used to be active duty service members. So,
and I think the example you just gave is one a lot of people could relate to, that feeling of seeing something at a moment when you're really missing it. I would say that it's even more heightened and amplified when you're talking about the lives of the folks, that we're serving. I mean,
without question, yeah.
So it makes the little things, some of the things we do, I talk a lot about this. If you don't really understand the context or you don't understand the lives that some of these folks are living, which, they're hard lives, but they're also heroic lives. These are men and women putting their lives on the line every day that are just doing incredible things And all it takes is just a little, a moment to sit down at a counter and have somebody make you a sandwich, or, get you to a satellite feed to connect back home. Something that, to me or you, without really being in that circumstance, you wouldn't understand the power of it until you talk to somebody and you have them explain what it meant at that moment in time to give them that little bit of a connection. And the other thing I would say is you were talking about how nobody would, when you talk to people about the USO, nobody tends to, have a bad thing to say. I would say it's quite the opposite. What's amazing about this organization is we are global, operating, like I said, in over 200 locations. We provided 11 million what we call service connections last year. We're doing that with less than 400 employees globally. The way we get it done is through volunteers. So we've got a roster of over 300,000 volunteers. And as I travel the world, which I do in this job, the thing that makes me the most proud and reaffirms for me every time I'm out on the road that I am in the right place at the right time doing exactly what I should be doing career-wise right now is talking to some of these volunteers about their experience with the USO. Because not only do they not say negative things about it, they all have stories. And the stories are about some volunteer or some person associated or employed by the USO who did something for them. And every story is unique and tailored to whatever the unique challenge was at that moment in time. But, I mean, some of the stories can just have you in tears. They're just so powerful. So, yeah, it's, for me, the volunteers who are the backbone of our organization are where just a lot of the richness lies for me in trying to, have the ability to talk to somebody like you or potential corporate partners about the importance and the power and the relevance of what the USO does to help, deliver on this mission of strengthening our active duty service members.
Well, absolutely. And Michael, that brings up a great point. Folks, for more information on the USO, head to USO.org. Okay, there at USO.org on the website, you can donate, you can volunteer, you can find a center, you can take a look at some of these stories that Michael's talking about, you can take a look at some gifts that are on there. It just has all the latest and greatest information. And again, that website is USO.org. And I believe your Twitter is just at USO, correct, if I'm not mistaken?
Correct.
Yep, at USO. Now, tell me a little bit about your relationship with some of the state USO folks. Like, I know that BBMC Mortgage, we just recently were honored with the USO Illinois Salute to Service Award. That was specifically through the USO Illinois. Can you tell?
And I was there when Todd got up, Todd Jones, and accepted that well-deserved award, yes.
Well, great.
It was an amazing evening.
Yeah, that's what I heard, and I was very glad to see Todd Jones, our president of Retail Mortgage, an Army veteran, West Point graduate, go up and get that award for BBMC. We were really happy to be honored with that, and those folks have been so great to us. But can you explain a little bit about the relationship between your side, the National USO, and the state side?
Sure. And this is a typical structure. Special Olympics, where I worked before, had the same kind of map or structure when you looked at the organization from the outside in. So we have what's called a federated organization, meaning that there is a global governing body, and that's the organization that I'm employed by, which is called USO Inc. And then there are a number of, and that's and some folks on the phone may be familiar with the term of 501c3, which refers to a tax code. It refers to our ability to take funds from a donor and then grant you back a tax benefit. So we are an independent 501c3, the USO Inc. Then there are 19 independent 501c3s that are operating around the continental United States. And think about these almost as franchises. So they are independent. They are operating on the front lines, grassroots level, delivering some of the most cutting-edge and innovative programs that are coming out of this organization. They They operate under the umbrella of USO Inc. So we are all one mission. We're all one family.
Folks, can you believe that the USO is on every continent? I couldn't even believe that when he said that at the beginning of that segment. That's pretty crazy. But the USO is on every single continent. They are in 14 countries and 200 locations. Absolutely amazing work that they're doing over there at the USO. Folks, this will be wrapping up our first segment here of Military Resource Radio. Again, my name is Tony Gatliff. I am your host here on the BBMC Mortgage Radio Network for Military Resource Radio. And again, this is our final terrestrial radio show. So if you want to follow us digitally, head on over to militaryresourceradio.com. Take a look at our online outlets and subscribe to our show in podcast form. We want to see all of you here on Military Resource Radio, all digital, next week. Hello, folks. Tony Gatliff here with more Military Resource Radio, and we are here on our final terrestrial episode here of Military Resource Radio. What does that mean, folks? Well, that means we're going to be off the radio starting next week. We're going to be all digital. Podcasting is the future, folks, and that's what we're moving to here on Military Resource Radio. Wanted to simply let you know that in order to subscribe to our show in podcast form, all you have to do is head over to militaryresourceradio.com, go down towards the middle of the homepage, take a look at our online outlets, select one of those. It'll take you direct to their site, and you can go ahead and subscribe to Military Resource Radio right from there. Or you can go to your favorite podcast outlet and just search Military Resource Radio. Chances are we're on there, and you can hit subscribe. And that way, the show will automatically download right into your device every single week via podcast. And what's better than hearing me every single week, whether you like to or not? I mean, ask my fiance, Ashley. She hears me every single week, whether she likes to or not. She'll tell you how great it is, folks. Absolutely, here on Military Resource Radio. Tony Gatliff here on the BBMC Mortgage Radio Network with you here on Military Resource Radio. And we're going to get back to some more of our interview with Michael Hoar, Vice President of Corporate Alliances with the USO. We're going to do that right now.
For example, you referenced USO of Illinois. Allison Rubel is the CEO there. And
shout out to Allison. Great person, by the way.
She is an amazing lady and is doing, like I said, incredible things in Illinois to serve our active duty service members in that part of the world. Todd Jones sits on the board of USO Illinois. So Illinois is one of the biggest and maybe most progressive, I would say. We call them charter centers, which are these 19 organizations that are operating under the umbrella. So in any given market that you're in, if it's one of these 19 locations, you are dealing with part of this one movement, this one mission, this one organization called the USO, but it may be a branch or a subsidiary within the larger organization. It just enables us to, from my standpoint, talk to potential partners about doing something on a very broad scale. So say if we're doing some kind of a co-branded effort where we can leverage the USO Inc. brand, we can talk big, large scale, large footprint, while at the same time saying if you also want to execute or build out components of the partnership that are operating at a very grassroots local level, maybe to offer opportunities for employee volunteerism or to do things like BBMC does, which is to put together large numbers of care packages that all the employees come together and pack and write notes in and ship overseas. We can also do those kind of grassroots local program activities as well because of this structure and this presence that our charter centers have.
Wow, well that's great. That's a and honestly, I've never heard that explained so well, actually. So I appreciate it, and yeah, we loved, by the way, doing that those USO care packages. With the letter.
Well, and I bet they liked getting them on the other end even more. Those are some of the, again, it seems so simple, right, to put a package together with some candy or some personal care. But you have no idea, I mean, when somebody's on the front line, how purely appreciated those are. So, yeah, BBMC really stepped up, and it was quite a large shipment we got out of you guys, so we love that.
Well, we were highly encouraged to do it by Todd Jones, and speaking of which, he said at that particular time, he said, you have no idea when I was over in Bosnia or when I was deployed or over in Europe, you have no idea how much these letters from someone that you don't even know, that you'll never even meet, that whatever, you have no idea the difference that makes in your life. And I mean, you talk about strengthening the bonds between family, home, and country, right? That's a huge deal. We're so glad to do it. I mean, honestly, how long does it take to pack up a care package and write a handwritten note to someone? 3 minutes. I mean, and at the end of the day, you're making a huge difference in someone's life. So we're very, very happy about that. And I wanted to ask you as well too, in regards to your current kind of suite of global programs that you've got out there. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the programs that the USO has going on right now that folks would be interested in hearing about? And again, folks, I'm sure a lot of this information will be available on USO.org, the website, or you can go to Facebook and search USO, or you can head to Twitter and they're just at USO. And folks, please frequent those USO social media pages, because let me tell you, it really helps. Donations really help a lot. Social media traffic really helps a lot for the USO. And if you believe in their mission, and I think you do, that's helping active duty service members have a taste of home. Basically, that's what the USO is really about at the end of the day. Helping active duty service members would be more accurate, but really a lot of it's about that taste of home. And if you believe in that mission, and I really do, I would urge you to please go out and support the USO. Great organization that we work with here at BBMC Mortgage on our Patriots Charity Initiative. Absolutely some amazing things that these folks do. Again, my name is Tony Gatliff. I am your host of Military Resource Radio. You are listening to the final terrestrial episode of Military Resource Radio right now, folks. And you're going to have to follow us digitally. You're going to have to go to your favorite podcast outlet, search Military Resource Radio, and hit subscribe so we go into your downloads every single week. And we can keep in touch with you here on Military Resource Radio. We want you folks to be there for our brand new digital breakout starting next week. So please follow us over digitally. Again, my name's Tony Gatliff. I'm your host of Military Resource Radio. We will talk to you with more of our Iron Man segment on BBMC Mortgage's Military Resource Radio here in just a few minutes after the jump. Hey folks, Tony Gatliff back here on Military Resource Radio with our Iron Man segment. And we're going to get right into the meat and potatoes of our final interview segment with Michael Hoar, Vice President of Corporate Alliances here at the USO. And I'm going to come back on the final segment, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Military Resource Radio and how you can follow us digitally and say some thank yous to some folks as well out there. So I would really appreciate it if you could stick with us through this segment and through the next on Military Resource Radio to really hear where the show's going and what we're doing with the show. So, again, my name is Tony Gatliff. This is our Iron Man segment. And before I run out of time here, I'm going to shut up and you're going to listen to some more of our interview with Michael Hoar. Thanks. Michael, tell us a little bit about what's going on across the globe right now with the USO.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a really strong foundation when we look at our suite of programs and things that we've been doing that are fairly fundamental to who we are, that has, over our 76 years have been fairly consistent. But then there are some programmatic initiatives happening now that are just incredibly cutting edge and forward-looking and really tailored to the evolving and changing needs of our active duty service members. And actually, it's that latter area where we're seeing a lot of really cool engagement with BBMC. So I'll talk about that in a moment. What I would say, so when I talk about the suite of programs offered by the USO, there's a lot there. I like to talk about it from the perspective of the active duty service member. So if you think about a service member going through their journey from the day that they enlist to the day that they conclude their transition out of active duty, we are there literally every step of the way. And so I would characterize 4 broad stroke buckets of activities that happen over that journey. So the first is literally enlisting. So the day, and anybody who's listening to this who has served knows very well what I'm talking about. The day that you enlist, you show up possibly with your parents or family, loved ones, at what's called a MEP Center. That stands for Military Entrance Processing Station. The USO is at every single one of those military entrance processing centers around the country. We're there to hold your hand, a shoulder to cry on if that's what's going on, to assure your parents or your family members, to give you and your family an idea of what's to come as you begin this journey, and to reassure you that the USO is going to continuously be there to give you that lifeline back home. Mm-hmm. So that's the first and very incredibly important way that we began and we established the relationship. The second bucket of activities I would talk about is all related to family, because one of the most essential roles I think that the USO play is keeping our active duty service members connected to their family. There's the reality of being an active duty service member these days is very different than, certainly than it was 76 years ago for somebody who was being drafted into World War II. These days, when you're serving, it's an all-volunteer group of active duty service members. It represents only 1% of our population that are serving the other 99%. When you do look at all the active duty, Guard, Reserve, and their families, that population is just under 5 million. So that's who we define as the population that we're serving. So active duty, Reserve, and their families. And we have a suite of programs dedicated to keeping the family unit solid. So it can be anything as simple as phone calls and video chats home, serving very basic family meals that allow the family to get out together, to eat together, to might be the end of the month. We have what are called no-dough dinners, which are really tailored to just giving the community a chance to get out and eat, especially at the end of the month where the paycheck may have been stretched a little thin for the month, which is common.
BMC's been involved in some of those, yep.
Yes, indeed you have. We do a lot with kids. We've got a Sesame Street character named Katie that was created for and with the USO. And Katie tours and does shows where she talks to military kids about and their language in terms that they can understand what it means to be a military child, and why is my experience different? Why do we move, every year or so, and why do I have to start new schools? We do.
Cool. I didn't know anything about that. That is so cool that you guys got together with the folks at Sesame Street, 2 American institutions.
Isn't that cool? Yeah. And Katie's pretty cool too, and the kids love her. We do a lot with spouses, when an active duty service member, and mostly we are talking, it goes both ways, but it's mostly men who are deployed and women that are home with the kids. I don't quote me, I don't know off the top of my head, but I want to say it's about 80 or 90% is oriented that way, although those numbers are changing over time.
Sure.
So we do a lot with spouses to get them together. We do events with spouses who are pregnant. If you think about, a woman, so could be, again, either way, but if it's a woman who's married to a guy who's deployed, he may now deploy for 9 months, but he may deploy 4 times over the course of, say, a 10-year, engagement with the armed services. They may move 8 times in those 10 years. If she is having children during that time, you think about what it's like to be in a family when you're pregnant, especially if it's your first. You tend to have your spouse with you, your community around you, your parents, your moms, helping you go through what's, a significant, change into a new life stage, hopefully going to be very joyful, but, brings challenges with it. Mm-hmm. You don't have a network. You may have just moved to a part of the world where you don't know any of the other spouses. You don't know anybody in town, and you don't have anybody to throw your baby shower. So, and your husband just deployed for 9 months. So we will do, we work with the author of What to Expect When You're Inspecting. We do showers that can be up to 30, 40, 50 pregnant women or women that have just given birth. We bring them all together so that they can network and strengthen each other. And then we give them a lot of loot. We get a lot of corporate partners to give us a lot of stuff that these folks really need. And then they get the support of each other. That's one of the most important things. So that's kind of a long-winded way and a very cursory look at the family bucket. The third bucket is out on the front lines. So this is where you would experience the USO Center. Now, USO Centers take a lot of different forms. Like I said, they can be on installations. They can be in airports. The MEP centers we talked about, they could be mobile. You will often see, like with a disaster recovery, we were supporting our active duty service members, who are down in Houston or Florida after the hurricanes there. We'll bring our mobile units out, which are really tricked out large Winnebagos, that can provide a variety of basic functions. We have expeditionary support locations. So this is where we have, for example, a program called USO to Go. So if you're at the tip of the spear in Afghanistan or Kuwait, there may be places that are just not stable enough or not safe enough for us to stand up a USO. We will airship crates over that have satellite connectivity back, that have the tent, that have laptop computers, that have video gaming, basic food, personal care items, anything that we think you might want or you would benefit from if we were able to stand up a USO there. We just send it all over there, and then one of the volunteers on the base, one of the active duty service members will man it or stop it, and they trade off on that. So that's the third bucket of providing this basic support on the front lines. The last bucket, and this is an area where BBMC is getting very involved with us, and it's an area that we've really just embarked on over the last few years, it's on the other end of that journey. It's the transition out of active duty service into civilian life. And this is where in the past we really didn't play because, like I said earlier, we focus on serving those who are in active duty, and so we've kind of viewed the transition out as not being part of that experience. We've come to a very different place as an organization now because anybody who reads the press can see, that for many folks that are trying to do that and do it successfully, it's just not working so well for them. And so we, through acquisitions and the development of some organic programming, created a program called Pathfinder, and it's a holistic program that is part real, part virtual, part real world, part virtual, I should say, where you are, it's a concierge type of program. You're assigned a personal coach that helps you put an action plan together that provides services, support, information in any one of a number of areas. It could be financial readiness. It could be personal health, family strength. It could be obviously a lot to do with jobs and employment. So it could be resume writing skills or how to interview, how to just think about what the notion of a transferable skill is, how to talk and translate what you experience in the military into civilian life. These are basic skills that folks that have never lived in the civilian world really don't have. But you don't think about that unless you're somebody who's really wrapped your head around the reality and the challenges of really trying to transition out. Now, BBMC has really taken on and is owning one of the programmatic areas, which is around home ownership and the ins and outs of VA loans. And we just started piloting that in a number of markets, and it's been incredibly well received. So these are classes that are fully put on, sponsored by BBMC, and you all come in, and we could have 20, 30, 40 people in a room, and they receive a very, in fact, I sat in on a couple of them, and they're fascinating. I've learned a ton about what you need to know if you've never owned a home and you have an interest in that area. So I guess that's then four very broad stroke buckets. That is the USO and what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's a lot of information there. And again, folks, if you want to go and get some great information about the USO, you can see kind of, all the amazing programs that they have, including Pathfinder, which BBMC is very involved in, as you mentioned. But go to USO.org. I mean, you can click their How We Help section, and that will give you a great idea of every single thing that they're doing. Maybe not every single thing, but it'll give you a good summary. But as well, again, USO.org. That Twitter is @USO, or you can go on Facebook and just search USO. But we're very, very proud to be involved with the USO here at BBMC, Michael, and we really appreciate it because each and every time that you folks have the opportunity to sing our praises, you do it, right? And what more can you ask for from a corporate partner, right? But the good news is that we're doing great things for veterans and active duty service members. You folks are doing great things for active duty service members and folks that are transitioning out, and we really appreciate that synergy, and our missions are very much aligned. So it's a natural fit, and I know you probably deal a lot with Alana Ross, our Vice President of Corporate Relations, who just does a great job with all those corporate partnerships that we have out there,
No, we love Alana, and Alana she's a driving force behind what we've been able to achieve together, and we're very proud of what we've been able to do together.
Absolutely, and I know her and Todd went along on a USO tour this past year, I believe, and I don't know if you were involved in that at all, but they were very, very, very happy about what they saw, and were very much involved with it.
Yeah, they were all over Southwest Asia. I have to say I have not been to that part of the globe. They were there with Lisa Anastasi, who is my boss and head of development here. And, they came back, as most people do who do that sort of tour, and said it was really life-changing to see what they saw and to see the impact of the work that, again, we're doing together.
It very much was, and for sure. Michael, I have to say, this has been a very, very, very interesting interview for me. I certainly have known a lot of this stuff about the USO previously, but there were some things that I didn't really know, right? And so you've enlightened me on a couple things that I didn't know. I'm going to have to check out that Sesame Street character for one, to take a look at that. But wow, you folks are just doing just amazing work out there. You've continued to do amazing work for 76 years, and here's to another 76 years of the USO helping our men and women on the front lines and transitioning to a good life when they get out of the military. So we really appreciate you being so gracious to us here at BBMC Mortgage, and for being on Military Resource Radio today. We really and truly appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
And folks, that's going to be all with our interview with Michael Hoar. Thank you so much to Michael Hoar out there for coming on. And again, he's the VP of Corporate Alliances with the USO, a busy, busy man. He was very generous with his time with Military Resource Radio. That has been our Iron Man segment, folks, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes with the final segment, terrestrially on Military Resource Radio ever. Talk to you in a few. Hey folks, Tony Gatliff here with our final segment terrestrially ever for Military Resource Radio. But folks, good news, Military Resource Radio is going to be available via podcast form in the weeks to come. And all you need to do is head over to militaryresourceradio.com. This is to follow us digitally, because we're going all digital as of April 2nd and moving forward. Head on over to militaryresourceradio.com, scroll down on the homepage, and head to our Listen to Us section. We are going to be available starting on April 2nd in podcast form only, and that's going to be on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spreaker, TuneIn, Player FM, Google Play, and iHeartRadio. All of those mediums, folks, we are going to be available on, and all you've got to do is go to one of those mediums, search Military Resource Radio, and all you've got to do at that point is subscribe to our show in podcast form. And what does that mean? Well, that means that the device of your choosing is going to have this podcast put on it every single solitary week. So you're never going to miss an episode of Military Resource Radio. You can assure yourself of that if you go ahead and you subscribe to our show in podcast form. Folks, so I will remind you again, please follow us digitally here on Military Resource Radio. We want our audience to come with us. You guys are such a great part of this show. Interacting with you has been a huge, huge part of this, and so we want our audience to come with us. when we make the transition from terrestrial to digital. So just wanted to let you know on that. As well, there's a couple thank yous that I wanted to send out there. Couple things. I wanted to thank all the folks at BBMC Mortgage who really make this show possible, and who are big fans of this show and what we're doing on Military Resource Radio. And God, I could go on and on and on, and I'm sure I'm going to miss some people, but I want to thank, let me think. I want to thank Ian Arnold, our marketing director at BBMC. I want to thank Todd Jones, our president at BBMC. I want to thank Brian Surgener, our SVP of strategy and analytics here at BBMC, who really put together the BBMC Mortgage Radio Network for us to be on. It helps with a lot of the structure of the show. I want to thank Alana Ross, our Vice President of Corporate Relations, who does a lot of work in getting the guests sometimes for me. I want to thank Samantha Leertz, one of our wonderful executive assistants out there that does a great job. I want to thank my executive assistant, Bridget Kirkuri, for everything that she does, help editing the show and doing things for Military Resource Radio when it's required. Bridget, you do a great job, so shout out to you. I'm trying to think. I want to thank, I'm trying to think. I could go on and on and on and on and on and on and on with people to thank at BBMC. Gina, our social media director, Cynthia, another one of our amazing executive assistants, Megan in our marketing department. These people are just great people. Again, I could go on and on and on about amazing people that do great things so we can bring Military Resource Radio to you on a weekly basis here over at BBMC Mortgage. Yeah, absolutely. One person I also want to thank, the man who makes this all possible, the CEO of BBMC Mortgage, Jeff Generelli. Shout out to you out there, Jeff. Jeff's been on Military Resource Radio before. He's a big fan of the show, and so I wanted to say give him a shout out as well too. Everybody else, I'm sorry if I missed you. I apologize. I really do. But I had a pretty good list going into this. I think I might have forgotten some people. So is what it is. What can you do? But to everybody at BBMC Mortgage who helps power the BBMC Mortgage Radio Network and helps make Military Resource Radio possible, I just wanted to say thank you. I really, really appreciate everything that you have done for me and continue to do out there. As well, I do want to thank Steve Casio. Steve is I guess you could call him a sort of a co-producer of the show with me. He helps edit some of the music, some of the sound effects. He helps distribute the show to the different online and terrestrial outlets that we've been doing the last few years since I came on in 2015 to do Military Resource Radio here. But Steve is an integral part of the team here. He's an absolutely amazing person. I want to thank him first and foremost because he does everything out there to make sure that Military Resource Radio is the best that it can be. So Steve, thank you. A tip of the cap and a shout out to you, my friend out there. Again, that's Steve Casio, folks. He's a great dude, and we're glad to have him on the Military Resource Radio team. I also want to thank all the stations who had us on over the years here. That's going to be AM 860 The Answer in Tampa, Florida, AM 570 The Answer in Washington, D.C., CBS Sports Radio, AM 1270 here in my hometown of Detroit, KABC 790 in Los Angeles, KTEM News Radio 14 in Austin and Fort Hood, and AM 600 WBOB in Jacksonville, Florida. I want to thank all those folks for having us on over the years. It's been great to have you on, and as well, folks, I do want to mention one person in specific, Anjanette Netkowski from 560 AM WIND in Chicago and Salem Radio. Anjanette, if you're out there, really appreciate working with you the last couple of years. You've been absolutely great, great account executive for the radio. She just does a great job for Salem and 560 AM WIND. So I wanted to make sure to mention Anjanette as well. She's been very great to us and very courteous to us on Military Resource Radio. So anyway, folks, this is the final terrestrial episode of Military Resource Radio. But that comes with a big but, a big however. we will be continuing digitally. So all you need to do is go to militaryresourceradio.com. You can listen to us directly on militaryresourceradio.com through our podcast tab, but really the easiest thing is to go to one of our online outlets, iTunes, SoundCloud, Spreaker, TuneIn, Player FM, Google Play, or iHeartRadio, and subscribe to us in podcast form. If you subscribe to us in podcast form, you can ensure that every single episode of Military Resource Radio from here forward is going to go directly into your library on the device that you choose. And if you do that, that means Military Resource Radio is coming at you every single week, whether you like it or not. And that's how we like it here at Military Resource Radio. We want to make sure that that's getting out to our audience, and we don't want to lose our audience. We want our audience to follow us over digitally and make sure that we're squared away on that side, because interacting with you folks out there in the audience is a big part of this and a big part of the fun of us doing Military Resource Radio. So I'm Tony Gatliff. I'm your host of Military Resource Radio. And again, we are powered on the BBMC Mortgage Radio Network. This is the last 10 seconds of Military Resource Radio out there on the terrestrial airwaves, and we really appreciated the time we've had. We'll see you over in the digital world here. Again, Tony Gatliff signing off for Military Resource Radio. Thanks, and we'll see you in the digital world.